Good evening, Hunslet and Riverside Ward. It is Councillor Paul Ray here with my fortnightly Q&A. Your chance to quiz me and ask me questions on anything you would like about our ward and community and the work I do and the work that Leeds City Council does. And today we have this live Q&A on the day that, as many of you I'm sure are aware, that additional local restrictions have been applied to Leeds in relation to the coronavirus outbreak. So I'm going to spend the first couple of minutes just really talking about that. I've got a feeling there's going to be quite a lot of questions on that, but of course you can raise questions about anything you'd like to. So just to kind of, for those people that haven't seen the news, as of midnight tonight, additional restrictions on the mixing of households in Leeds will apply. So as of midnight tonight, you must not host people you do not live with in your home or garden unless they're in your support bubble. Meet people you do not live within your home or garden, whether inside or outside of the affected areas, unless you are in their support group. So basically the restrictions are, or the enforceable restrictions are around people you mix with in your own home and garden. The council is giving general advice, though, in line with the government around trying to limit the mixing of people outside of your household or support bubble in general public. But the restrictions as they were focused solely on the mixing of households. It is safe to say that the replication rate of the virus in Leeds is at a concerning height. I think it was, last time I checked, it was 98.5, or at least that was what was said today out of 100,000. We've joined quite a lot of other authorities today who have gone into local lockdown measures. And I think as the statement from the joint statement, should I say, from the chief medical officers of the four nations of the United Kingdom said, we are at a critical and quite dangerous tipping point where if we don't get control of this virus, there is the real risk of potential full national lockdown again. So I'm sure there's probably going to be questions about this. It is obviously the main topic of the day. I've been answering, must have been over 100 messages now about this since it was all announced only 3 or 4 hours ago. So please do start asking your questions. Just before that, do some other local bits of news. Actually, there's not much, to be fair. It's pretty much going to be all coronavirus based, but I will raise a couple of points. So there is a consultation at the moment going on about the Mirfield to Dewsbury Road cycle lane improvements. If you just Google that, it'll come up online. Really important. Do give you feedback on that major transport improvement, as it will hopefully, if approved, help improve active travel and cycle access for quite a large distance into the city centre. One other local update before I start going into questions which I know will be dominated by coronavirus tonight is that the Winston's application for an alcohol licence has been withdrawn, and they will now not be proceeding to try and get an alcohol licence on Dewsbury Road. I know a lot of people will be very, very happy with that. And the licence request for a 24-hour licence at the Jet petrol station, we have put a request into the applicant to amend those hours, and I will update residents as I know. So I'm going to go straight to the questions on this one because I have a limited time tonight due to other meeting commitments. So please do get those questions in, and I will try and answer as best as I can. If I don't know, I will go away and get the answer and come back to you. Sarah, yeah, we know that the announcement of additional restrictions is going to be really punishing to a lot of people. I don't think there's any point in pretending it's not going to be, particularly those households that are already very isolated. The council's full support mechanisms are still there, and we will try and help with support and befriending where necessary, and we will also try and re-engage as many of our volunteers from the original part of the outbreak as possible. But yes, we do know it is going to cause a lot of problem, and there will be a lot of effort going into trying to support people with their mental health and well-being during this period. It is not going to be good, particularly bearing in mind we don't know how long it's going to be for, and potentially the impact that will have. Hamlet, look, we didn't write these rules, and this is a big area of question for a lot of people. why are you allowed to mix with different people in pubs and up to 6 people and not so in your own house? As I said, the council's advice on this has been to try and follow the advice everywhere, to be fair. But we are working in a national framework, and that national framework has restricted the mixing of different households at homes and private gardens. They have not restricted that to hospitality venues. I think obviously probably the main concern around there is around the economy and jobs. But that's something that the government has implemented rather than us. And, it's one of these things where we're pretty much a rule taker. I think it is safe to say that, it would be easier if the rules were simpler, but we are where we are, and the restrictions are simply applying to people's homes and gardens in terms of mixing with people outside of their support bubble. But the council's strong recommendation is that we should be following this in general wherever possible to try and limit the spread of the virus. And I think, there's a lag on these things. So test rates are showing more people getting the virus. There will be a lag rate of 2 to 3 weeks before it starts hitting hospitals. And then obviously the inevitable and tragic increase in deaths that will potentially follow if we do not get on top of this and on top of this very, very quickly. So I've had a few more questions sent to me indirectly, so not on the live feed. So please do get your questions again. All of these seem to be COVID related tonight, as you'll probably understand. Will play parks be closed again? So I don't know if play parks will be closed again. It is unlikely at the moment because, again, the restrictions that are coming are specifically targeted to the mixing of different households in private households and their gardens. So there's been no conversation about that, and all of the kind of normal national restrictions are still in place. So playgrounds are still open. There's no plans to restrict those at the moment. So on that one, let's have a look. Another one that's come to me via WhatsApp: are gyms going to be restricted? No, gyms are not restricted under this. So there is guidance to try and advise people to try and avoid places where you would mix with people outside of your household or support bubble if you have one, but that is guidance. It is not legally enforceable at the moment. Gyms and their associated classes will remain open and functional. Of course, if that changes or if national guidance changes, that will be communicated, but that has not changed under the lockdowns. We're getting some clarification on this. I've not read through all the guidance yet on this, Stephen. I think we're certainly saying that households shouldn't mix. I think there was a little bit on you shouldn't, if you're from out of the area, you shouldn't mix with a household in Leeds. But it's one of those things that we're getting a full question Q&A of questions people we know are going to ask over the next couple of days. As soon as we have that, we will get that online. It will be on the council website. So I can't give you a 100% answer on that one because I'm not 100% sure from the guidance myself. But as soon as I know, it will be online. Richard, so they're doing some roadwork. Leeds City Council doing some roadworks. I'm not 100% sure what those roadworks are. And that's at Junction because it's technically outside of my ward. It's technically Midland Park ward, so I didn't get a briefing on it. There is a link for it. I don't know the exact reasons why they're doing it, but what I can do is find out. If you just send me a direct message on Facebook, as soon as I get you an answer, Richard, I will message you back. I know it's been out because there's the anti-clockwise and there's the clockwise, and the clockwise I think is due to come back online actually in a couple of weeks, and the anti-clockwise is sometime in November, or the other way around. Bob me a message and I will get you a proper answer because I'll email off to Highways Leeds. But the reason why I don't know off the cuff is it's technically Middleton Park ward on the other side, so I didn't automatically get a briefing about that. Let's have a look at some other questions. Are there additional restrictions on pubs? No, there are not additional restrictions on hospitality settings. So we are still following the national guidance and restrictions as already set with the rule of 6 and other bits and bobs the government's obviously announced have gone through. There are no additional restrictions on pubs as part of the local restriction announcement. So that stays as it was. Let's have a look. I've got a question sent to me on email. Are religious venues affected? So there are exemptions to the rules that have been stated. Religious venues are part of this, but as part of the government's announcement, there are rules particularly for religious places of worship around how many people can be in there. So specifically for weddings, it's 15, for funerals, it's 30. And all religious venues will have to follow COVID secure guidelines for some of the other things they're doing. There's going to be updates coming from this because that's going to be a frequently asked question. But as far as I'm aware, there's not been a change to places of worship rules, but we will get clarification on that if there has been any, but I'm pretty sure there hasn't. I'm looking forward to that Q&A in a couple of days' time. Let's have a look. Another question on it, again, COVID related, as you'll be aware. Are we allowed to have work people in our property if we need repairs done? So if there are essential repairs that need to be done, if there are things like that, they will still be allowed to go part. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a copy of my update onto my website into the comments. In there, about halfway down, there's a list of things that you're still allowed to do in your property with someone that isn't actually a household member or a member of your support group. And some of those are around things like repair works, etc. And there's a link to national guidance as to what is deemed acceptable, etc., etc. So if you do want to have a look at that, that's fine. But I think looking at that guidance, for example, housework, say your landlord has to go into fill a legal obligation around a gas safety check, etc., and they would still be permitted priority repair works, things like that. Are we still allowed to go ahead with litter picks? Our answer to this has been yes. Litter picks are still allowed to be done, but they must be done in a secure and safe manner. So that means no groups. So no one really mixing from different households where possible. If that is not likely to happen, then it should be follow the rules of no more than 6 people. And again, practical measures should be put in place, like making sure things are sterilised, etc., etc. So litter picks done by the community can still go ahead, but they must be done with COVID security in mind, where possible in isolation, so no one near each other, where not possible under that 6 people limit to try and reduce the impact. Someone asked me about parking. If you can tell me which parking, I'll try and answer the question. Let's have a look. Will construction work still be taking place in Leeds? So again, the additional restrictions brought in are around people from different households mixing at home and in private gardens. So construction work will still continue, but again, it has to follow the government's COVID secure rules. And that's obviously for the construction firm and developer to make sure they are following those rules as appropriately. Let's have a look. Any other questions coming through? How will this affect schools? Again, this is impacting on household mixing in private households and their gardens. This does not affect the current position of schools and the way they are being managed. So again, that hasn't changed as part of this. Again, this is really just impacting on your household and mixing with people outside of your household or support bubble if you have a support bubble. Let's have a look. Any other questions coming in? Will this affect public transport? Public transport has already a very significant set of rules in there around COVID security. Again, if there are any changes to that specifically, that will probably come from the guidance. But as it currently stands, all we've been advised is, or what we have been advised is the additional restrictions are again around your home and mixing with people outside of your home bubble or support group. So there should be no additional restrictions imposed as part of the local lockdown, or at least at the moment. I think the only thing to note is what came in with the Prime Minister's announcement a few days ago, that, for example, you will be required to wear a face mask if you use a taxi. That wasn't in the rules before. That is now in the rules, but that's for a national level. That's not specific to Leeds. Let's have a look. Is it true there are problems with the NHS app and certain phones? Yes, there is a specific problem with older model types, particularly of the iOS range. I think it's from anything from an iPhone 5 or 6 back. You can't use the app. This is something known to the government, and they are looking at. It's an IT legacy issue, and I think there's quite a lot of significant work working around that at the moment to make sure those people that have some of the older phones can use the technology, but there is a known problem. Obviously, I do recommend that people do download the NHS Track and Trace app. Really important if we're trying to keep control of this and prevent a national lockdown by being able to track where the potential virus has been. Let's have a look. They are definitely all COVID-related questions tonight. Am I allowed to continue outdoor sports? There are specific guidance around outdoor sports that were announced as part of the additional restrictions put down nationally. I don't have that to hand, but that information is already on the council's website at leeds.gov.uk/coronavirus. So please do have a look at that on there. I don't know the rules off the top of my head, but there were restrictions and rules brought in as part of that for outdoor sports activity. George, there seems to be a lot of fireworks going off late at night, even at midnight around Hunslet and local area. Is this under investigation, please? I've not had any reports given to me. If you can tell me rough whereabouts the rough locations are, I will bring that up with the police. We are having a meeting with the police I think it's next week or the week after for what we call fireworks season. We had the first one about 2-3 weeks ago, and we are prepping for fireworks season. We do basically know from now until basically what would be bonfire night, it is problematic. We are doing test purchases, for example, at shops. We are trying to restrict access where possible. We do think there may be some issues this year, particularly because there is no firework displays because of COVID. But if you can bomb me a message, George, of where the particular problems in Hunslet are, I will raise that with West Yorkshire Police to look at, and the antisocial behaviour team. So in terms of shielding, no, there's been no changes to shielding guidelines. So none of that's changed. The additional restrictions that have been brought in are again around households not mixing. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go out or go to the shops or anything like that. That hasn't changed because there's the new strict rules in terms of face masks and COVID security in shops, etc., and with their Track and Trace app. It is specifically about people entering your home who is not part of your support group. That is where the new restrictions come in. So there are no new shielding restrictions as part of this. Of course, what we should always say is if we go into national lockdown, then there may be conversations around those things. But as at the moment, there is no requirement, there is no changing to shielding advice. This is solely about the mixture of households in your property or your private garden and preventing that from happening. I'm glad you think that's excellent, because I know that's worried a very, very large number of people today, particularly those that spent a lot of time shielding, and completely understandably it worries a lot of people. Is the council still providing food assistance? Yes, we are. We still have our hub. So for those people who do need assistance because of the coronavirus pandemic and things like that, the food hubs are still in place. They are all being dealt with by our welfare rights team now. Again, if you just put Leeds City Council coronavirus helpline online, it will bring the number up. And it's been dealt with by our welfare rights team as well, because obviously there's maybe conversation around benefits, etc., to help people out. But that assistance line is still there and is still providing a significant amount of help. And absolute thanks to in the Involve Centre, Slung Low, and the Hamara Centre, who are doing a marvellous job here in South Leeds of being our food hubs for their respective areas. Let's have a look. Do you know how long this will be for? The honest answer is we don't. This will be reviewed by government based on the data sets that they get. I think the honest answer is none of us know how it's going to get on. I think, as the Prime Minister said about the national restrictions, they were looking realistically at 6 months. I think we probably, as the Victoria Eaton, the Director of Public Health here in Leeds, said, we probably have to brace ourselves for a potential that this will be throughout winter. But it is data-led. So if the data changes and rates drop off, we might be in a different position. If the data says that actually, it will continue in the format it is, then we may be in this situation well into winter and past it. We've still got flu season to come. So again, if you've not already got it, I know there's been some issues with supplies. Try and get yourself registered for your flu jab, so that we can try and limit the impact of flu this year. Because again, coronavirus plus flu is probably not going to be an easy ride for the NHS. So in terms of litter picks, Brenda, they can go ahead is the latest advice we have been given, but they need to be socially distanced. Appropriate measures need to be put in place around making sure equipment's cleaned, etc. And where possible, people should be litter picking by themselves. So yes, the litter pick we've organised for a couple of weeks can go ahead, but I think, as we said on the event page, we don't want anybody standing next to each other. We want it to be well spaced out, clear distance between people, and that the rule of 6 is followed, and that obviously equipment's cleaned, no one gets together, etc. So there'll probably be no group photo at the end of that one for understandable reasons. Right, I'll pick that up, because I think a lot of it depends on the situation. Is the honest answer. I think in the main they're trying to make sure that people that can collect food, etc., themselves do, because the number of volunteers we have is much smaller now, because a lot of people have gone back to work, and I think they're only providing delivery where it's someone that's in real need. But I will go away and double check for you, George. That is not an issue. Right, some other questions. Let's have a look. How will they police the rule of 6? Well, that's for the police is the honest answer. So, in terms of the rule of 6, it is under the remit of West Yorkshire Police to manage. In this case, in our local area, and they have fining powers which escalate all the way up to quite considerable thousands of pounds for repeat offenders. The police, as they always do, will always try and follow the advice of trying to not have to fine and to ask people to do the right thing, but they will use their powers. Government has offered additional resources to the constabularies to try and help them with this, but I think it's fair to say that the police have got one hell of a task on them to manage. Our police system was never set up to manage people's behaviours in this way. They're there for law enforcement. A lot of this is behavioural management. So I think there's a great emphasis on us to try and do what we should do to follow the rules. But strictly speaking, it's the police that's going to enforce this. In terms of businesses, the council has some control over this because of the COVID guidance. So though businesses, for example, can't force someone to wear a face mask when they go into a shop, they have a duty to challenge, they have a duty to have signage, they have a duty to put things in place. They have a duty now to make sure their staff wear a mask. But if someone goes into a shop with a mask on and then takes it off, it is difficult. However, some retailers, like I think Asda's done this, they're going to have internal marshals, for example, which will basically tell people do it, or effectively we will call the enforcer, which is the police. Where businesses aren't following guidelines, the first port of call is the council's environmental protection team, who can be emailed on EP team, so epteam.gov.uk or lead.gov.uk. I'll put into the messages, and they are the first port of call. They will contact the business and they will basically say, we've been given advice, you're not following the guidance, what are you doing? Okay, you are, okay, you're not, this is what you need to do. So for individuals not doing it, it's the police. For businesses not doing it, it's the email address I've just put into the comments, and then the council will come and do it. We have had a lot of businesses reported, and I will give absolute credit to our environmental protection team. They are on it with very limited resources. They are doing an absolutely amazing job, and particularly the bars and restaurants having a massive turnaround. Let's have a look. Will this result in any service restrictions? Don't know is the honest answer. The council is obviously evaluating after the national guidance about people working from home where possible, and reducing any external preventing any unnecessary work outside where it doesn't need to be done. So there's a whole review going on in the background at the moment. So hopefully there will be no restriction to services, but again, we will follow national guidance as it's given to the council about what we can do. Can we commute to work outside of LS of Leeds? There's something in the guidance here about this, and so people, yes, you can because it's work. So again, the key thing for this is around the mixing of households. So if you work outside of Leeds, work is exempt from restriction rules, but it should also be done in a COVID secure way, etc., etc. What the additional restrictions are doing is saying you can't have multiple people from multiple households in your house for a party or for whatever other reason. So if you work outside of Leeds, that's not impacted because work is exempt. The only time that will probably change is in a national lockdown situation. But again, the government is saying if you can work from home, you should work from home. They've changed the message on that, and only work from home when you don't have a choice. But if you work outside of Leeds, so you commute outside of Leeds, that is not impacted by this. The only thing that is impacted is the mixing of households in your home or private space for people who are outside your immediate family who live in that property and your support bubble, with the exceptions that are on that very long list around legal requirements like gas safety checks, etc. So in terms of the Sun Pub, Phil, we don't know yet, actually. I know the care home next door has shown an interest in the land. I know a couple of other people have shown an interest in the land. For people who don't know, this is a very old pub on one side of Church Street. But we literally don't know what the owner is intending to do with it. I think there was some conversation at some point of it being turned into flats, and that hasn't happened. But there is interest in the site from a number of parties. Whether that gets anywhere is a different question because it's obviously a private commercial matter. But I do know the care home next door is very interested in that land and have been trying to get hold of the owner. Right, I'm going to take a couple of more questions, and then unfortunately I do have to go because I have another meeting tonight. And it's been you can imagine, it's been a busy day with all the announcements that come through. Let's have a look. Again, this is another gym question that's been sent to me via WhatsApp. This announcement doesn't affect anything to do with gyms. Again, what's happened in Leeds is it's restrictions around mixing with people outside of your housing bubble, outside of your house that are not immediate family and are not in your support bubble, in your home or private garden. So if you're going to the gym, that's not been affected. Gyms are still open. They can still do the private training courses, etc. They're governed by the national guidance. So as long as they're operating in a COVID secure way, you can still go to the gym. Let's have a look. Are there plans for additional testing sites in Leeds? It's very hard to get a test. The council is working really, really hard on this at the moment to get as many mobile testing units and permanent test sites as possible. It is difficult. There has been a national shortage of tests, and there have been issues with tests, but there is a lot of work going on this. So as soon as we know about testing sites, we will get them out. Again, if you can, if you do need a test, call 119 or go to the NHS website and you can order a test to be sent to you at home. So I'm going to have to call it quits on this because I've said I've got another meeting that I have to go to tonight. So I'm going to have to cut this one short. If you do have any other questions, please send me a message. I will try my best to answer them as quickly as I can. As counsellors, we're getting a frequently asked questions document sent to us over the next couple of days, which will hopefully pick up quite a lot of these questions. And as soon as I can, I will get that online to help people. The council's website will also be updated with that information. But if there are any specific questions, weird and wonderful queries, please do let us know, because some of this will have to be picked up as these questions are raised. Other than that, all I will do is finish by saying, please do stick to the national guidance. We don't want to go into a full national lockdown. So that does mean, keep your distance from people where possible, wash your hands regularly and for that 20 seconds, keep your face covered in those enclosed spaces, follow the rule of 6, stick to the local lockdown restrictions on social gatherings and contacting your home and garden. And, if you do feel you've got symptoms, get that test booked in. Other than that, I wish you all a healthy and safe weekend. If you do have any questions whatsoever, I might not be able to get you an immediate answer, but please just message me and I will go away and get you an answer. Other than that, have a great weekend, everyone. Speak to you all soon.